Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I did solve this problem multiple times in large projects. You will see almost in every MEP model some fittings which are just flying in the model and their connectors are not connected on each side. So I did create some sample model. We have some pipe fittings that are not connected, we have some duct, and we have some cable trays. And the script will work even if you have fittings which are not elbows. T, for example. Okay, and we can also add cross. Okay, so it is not necessary to have just an elbow. We are trying to see all those fittings which are not connected on any side. We want either to export them in order to pass that information to some technician and to say, okay, please check for those elements if we need them, or if we are absolutely sure it's the end of the project and we need to submit some documentation and we want to make sure that we don't have fittings which are not connected to any other element, we can just delete them. So that is why I did create some script, and the Dynamo player itself has some problems. It's going always into the background of the Revit. So that is why I did split windows over here. So the script is very simple. I will show you the script in the Dynamo. This is the user interface, so the script can work with cable tray fittings, duct fittings, pipe fittings. You can either select one, two, or all of them. You have also these buttons to help you with selection. And for example, if you just want to review all those elements, you can say export, set values. You will export then Excel file, and that file will be stored on the same location where you have Dynamo script. What we want to show is the name of the element and element IDs. And as you can see also over here, so the script did detect that T and cross, and we can copy this value. We can go select by ID, and this is the element which Excel spotted. So okay, if you want to export that to the Excel, that is okay, but if you want to delete that, let's run the script again. So for example, let's say that we want to delete duct and pipe fittings. We will choose now delete, and now we don't have any more of those fittings. Now you can say, okay, I forgot cable trays, so you can also select only one category, cable tray, delete, set value, and that is it. Of course, I will go undo in order to show you also that in Dynamo. So now we will open Dynamo. I'm not sure why this text inside the Dynamo is so much bigger than the other text in the Windows. But okay, so we have three different blocks in our script. Of course, first block is dedicated for the user interface. I did create over here a list. So I want to offer to the user to pick either pipe, duct, or cable tray fittings. From one side I will deliver that as values, from the other side I will take those names and I will convert them to categories. When the script executes that first part, it will send category to the rest of the script, not strings. Because we only have three different values inside this list view, I did reduce a little bit the height. Show ID, in this case we don't need to see IDs for categories, so I did choose over here to go false. Over here it is just a radio button, so you must choose one or the other. I will offer to the user to either delete or export. I must as a list send this as a text, but the value will be true or false. So if the user choose delete, we will have as output true. If select export, we will have false. Why? Let's go immediately. Let's run the script so we can just review the results. So let's say that we want to delete basically everything. Both inputs are going to the list. We want to run that user interface, that is okay. As output we have those categories, and the other input did return true. So we did choose to proceed with delete. So we will read that second input over here, and immediately we will go to this part. So I will explain this in a second. Over here you will now find all the elements for the category that you did choose. Okay, that is this part over here. But over here now we need to create some kind of logic in order to tell the Dynamo if the Dynamo needs to delete those elements or to export them. If you want to export, then you don't want to delete them, you just want to export to send somebody to review all those elements, but they must stay in the model. We did say previously that delete is equal to true value. I will deliver our elements to the true port. Over here delete did mean true, so over here we will took those elements, and if the value is true, we will send those elements to the element delete node, and this node will basically just delete all those elements. But then if you did choose over here to proceed with export, then over here we will have as a value false. Let's also run that just to show you. Output from this if node in this case are all those elements. But if we for a moment just close and open the script again in order to avoid that Dynamo will remember some values. So now we will again select all categories, but we will go with the export. Okay, Dynamo did export everything. Again over here Dynamo will find all those elements that we have in the model that are not connected. Over here now we did choose export, so export is equal to false, and now over here we did deliver all the elements, but as a test value we are delivering false. So now Dynamo must took this value, which is my name, and it doesn't mean anything, but it will prevent Dynamo to execute this element delete node. The same logic we will also apply on this export node. Again, I did try to explain in my previous video. If this node is working for you, that's great. If it doesn't work, you can repair this node. You can see my last video, or you can use Archela Bumblebee, or you can use Crumple, or you can use, I think Dynamo also have some nodes for exporting Excel files, or you can create your own Python script that will export Excel. Usually those nodes have like a question: do you want to execute this node or not? If you have some node with that input, then you can just pass this information that we are asking the user at the user interface. You can take this value and just send to that node, and you can reduce the complexity of the script. Over here, this is a native Dynamo node. We don't have that as an input, so again I'm using if statement, and I'm doing the same thing which I did over here. Okay, but we did skip a few steps, so we did complete with the user interface. Now we want to read which categories the user choose. Over here we did select all three categories now, and we did say, so we will offer to the user text, but actually this data shapes will return categories. So we will took all those categories, we will say all elements of category. Now you can say, okay Nanot, but you will not in that way find just the fittings which are not connected, you will find all fittings. That is correct. So at first we must find all fittings, then we will perform again some logic to discover which elements are not connected. The logic which I did choose in this script is, okay, at first we need for all our elements to find the connectors, and you will have as many connectors as the element have. For example, this elbow have only 2 connectors, but the T have 3 connectors, and of course cross have 4 different connectors. And we can maybe find those T and cross. Here is the 3, here is the cross fitting. Okay, this is the node from MEPover package. This next node is also a node from MEPover package. Of course, you can access those custom nodes. You can pick up the Python and you can reduce dependency of the packages. But I think it is fair that we mention MEPover package and that you know, if you're not that familiar with custom nodes and Python scripts, that you can use those packages. We did find the connectors now. We have some node which is basically a question for each and every connector. This node will ask, did you connect to something? And if the value is true, then that fitting is connected to some installation or to some other fitting. But for some fittings, we will find those false values. This is again for a T, this is again for a cross. And now how you will filter out just the elements that are not connected to anything. There is probably 10 or more solutions for that. I did go with count and count false. So I will at first count how many connectors I have for each element, and usually because I did use for almost everything elbow, I have 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. For T, I have 3 connectors. For cross, I have 4. Now I will also count just the false values, just those values where I have a connector which is not connected to anything. And then when you compare that, if you have an elbow which have 2 connectors and for both connectors you are receiving false value, then you know that for that element you can either delete it or export it. And it is the same story for every other fitting. So if the total number of connectors is the same with the total number of the false values that we are receiving, I know that I can delete those elements. And basically that is our logic over here for the elements which have at least for the one connector connected elements. They will not go at import, they will go to the out port. So now we have elements. I did explain the logic for delete and export. And now additional amount of work that we need to perform is just to format a little bit that export part where we want to present to the user the name, basically the family and family type of the element and the ID. So we did read what is the family. For family we will receive basically 2 values, family type and family itself. And then I want to find what is the element ID, because usually if you want to track now those elements, you will do it by element ID. In order to have this first value over here, which will say name, and then you will read the name and element ID, and now you can see element ID. For that purpose, I did add those 2 strings. I did create a list. I did flatten a little bit that list, and I did transpose that list before I did deliver to the export Excel. All of this can be done in a various number of ways. Also, you can use different nodes for export. But this is overall logic. I think this script can be useful for large projects when occasionally you will have problems with fittings which are just flying in the model. Thank you for watching. Bye.